And I'm in the 5th year of my teaching career as a secondary English teacher. I'm currently attending NJCU to obtain my master's in educational technology. My first course using integrated software has led me to Steven Johnson's book, Where Good Ideas Come From. While it is difficult to focus on just one of his many eye-opening points, his idea of the slow hunch has led me not only to ponder, but to begin to redefine why it is that I am and love being a teacher. I can't keep track of how many times someone has asked me, doesn't your job get boring, stagnant, and unmotivating when you have to teach the same thing over and over again? I always explain that it does not, because with every new student and new class, I'm able to work with new minds, with new ideas, and therefore every experience with a book or a poem or a piece of writing is different. In Chapter 3 of Steven Johnson's book, he discusses what he calls the slow hunch, the idea that although we may often think or feel like we have an aha, eureka, or serendipitous type moment in which we feel we've come to some wonderful realization just then in that moment, in actuality, these moments are the outcome of slow, developed, and thoughtful analysis having taken place over time, perhaps hours, days, years, or even, as he refers to Darwin and Priestley, decades. It is this idea that led me to believe perhaps this slow hunch, this slowly developed, nurtured, tended to, and growing idea is what, contrary to my inquirers may see, absolutely does motivate, stimulate, and propel me forward, happily seeking new ideas and points of view on the same old worn-down text, every time I revisit it with a new set of minds, all full of brand new, slow hunches to share and explore. On page 77, Steven Johnson states that the snap judgments of intuition, as powerful as they can be, are rarities in the history of world-changing ideas. Again, we can refer to such world-changing ideas as Charles Darwin's theory of natural selection. He goes on to say, most hunches that turn into important innovations unfold over much longer time frames. They start with a vague, hard-to-describe sense that there's an interesting solution to a problem that hasn't yet been proposed, and they linger in the shadows of the mind or by an internal association that finally completes the thought. It is the long incubation period that allows what we could call a hunch to stay there in our minds, developing, growing, and ultimately coming to the forefront of an idea, creating what feels like an aha, eureka, or serendipitous moment. This leads me to my interest in Johnson's idea that such moments develop and nourish of the mind and all it has to offer is best fostered and created, if you will, by the environment in which we are in. On page 47, he asks, how can one push one's brain toward those more creative networks? The answer, he goes on to write, as it happens, is delightfully fractal. To make your mind more innovative, you have to place it inside environments that share the same network signature, networks of ideas or people that mimic the neural networks of a mind, exploring the boundaries of the adjacent possible. Certain environments enhance the brain's natural capacity to make new links of association. Most theories of life's origins incorporate some variation of the primordial soup, an environment where novel combinations could occur thanks to the swirl and flow of liquid. It seems to me that while he's discussing elements and molecules in this particular chapter, this would apply like elements finding one another to produce the exact properties needed to sustain life in our ideas and, shall we say, hunches, are given the environment they need to swirl and flow with the hunches of others. Well, then they would become much, much more. That just a hunch, they would no longer be the children of an idle mind, really serving no purpose or giving no way in which to grow. Johnson discusses the coffee house in his video on TED.com and how it propels forward the production of ideas simply due to a few very basic elements coming together. Many people, some caffeine, the same geographical location, an atmosphere of thinking, reading, and speaking, all allowing said hunches to grow. In other terms, for other minds, economists have a telling phrase for the kind of sharing that happens in these densely populated environments: information spillover. When you share a common civic culture with thousands of other people, good ideas have a tendency to flow from mind to mind. Again, I find myself perhaps tapping into a slow hunch of my own. I love being in a learning environment, an environment dedicated to the development of ideas, thoughts, discussions, and debates in order to foster the ideas that may otherwise lay dormant in our minds, without the nurturing and the attention they need to grow and connect. I love sitting in students and I love sitting in a student-led seminar circle, creating the soup of thoughts for them to sift through. Through Johnson's ideas, I'm reminded of the think tank I recall hearing about in the news throughout the former President Bill Clinton's term. I recall thinking as a high school student, take a bunch of intelligent people, put them in a room, and just talk? I'd love to be a fly on that wall. When faced with one of our nation's highest priorities, Bill Clinton put in place a think tank. When reading the article, I was astounded at the similarity in what Ryan Henry, the administration's foreign policy expert, stated, and Johnson's idea of the slow hunch. We have a new team in there, so they are putting their own spin on foreign policy, but a lot of the elements are the same, says Ryan Henry, of the Washington think tank. What they have done is come up with a different way to conceptualize it. The process of the think tank and the slow hunch certainly are two main ingredients in the intellectual soup. While I may be inspired and in awe of the slow hunch idea in my classroom, eagerly searching for a local coffee house, creating an Evite for a think tank party at my own home, the bottom line is, Stephen Johnson is onto something. In the age of the endless workday, the need to buy, the devastatingly quick disappearance of the time to read and the limited sabbatical or vacation time to tap into our slow hunches, it seems to me such a simple idea may just be enough to inspire the everyday thinker to turn on the person beside them, jump in the soup, and swim. Oh, the slow hunches we would see.